Hello and welcome back to the Mathwiz monthly marathon. I think I remembered that correctly. The show where my patrons vote on stuff and I watch some anime and then talk about it for a bit with my co-host Roggle, who I'm introducing this time at the start of the video. Welcome back.
It's good to be here.
And this time we are talking about Monthly Girls Nozaki-kun or Gekkan Shoujo Nozaki-kun. It's a romantic comedy about a mangaka and this high school girl, and it was animated by Doga Kobo, which is cool because it's a fluffy Doga Kobo show, and it's got its cute moments. How did you feel? General thoughts on Nozaki-kun?
Initially, I really wasn't impressed. Like, the first episode, I thought was kind of weak, especially compared to what the show later did down the line. I thought I wasn't too invested at the start. The first couple of episodes, I wasn't really into it, but by the third episode, I was warming up to it, and by the end of the fourth episode, I would say I was pretty into it, and I was really enjoying it.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it didn't really like the first couple episodes when it was introducing the characters, nothing was really clicking for me, but like once they got past the introductory stuff and it got more into the hijinks now that we knew who these people were, that's when I thought it started to get a little better. That said, like, it depended on the episode. You can very much tell that this is a 4 coma adaptation because of like how the skits are broken up. Sometimes they like segue into each other pretty well and it just makes a nice cohesive episode. Sometimes they're two completely different things and there's not much to really connect them, and it's really obvious that it's like, okay, we're on to the next skit now. Which, I don't know, could be
Yeah.
fine, could be a problem depending on what you're interested in. I don't know. Sometimes, I don't know, it varies. Like, if I think of like another 4 coma adaptation that I really enjoyed, I think of Comic Girls from last year, where it did also have that kind of like segmented thing, but I don't even know what I'm trying to say with this comparison. Forget I cut that out, me.
The comedy was a little bit hit or miss. There were a few times where I chuckled heartily. There was no moments where I would say that I was like dying of laughter, like a lot of comedy shows that I've seen. But it was consistently, it was entertaining, but it wasn't laugh out loud funny for me. I wasn't overly impressed by the comedy aspect.
Yeah, very hit or miss. I agree. There's not much to really say on that front. The like pre-spoiler tag is not going to last very long in this episode because there's not really much to say with that, because unlike Log Horizon, which is more of like a plot-driven show, Nozaki-kun being, the more slice of life comedy, broken up into pieces, is really just kind of the jokes. There's no real plot to spoil. Obviously, I guess it depends what you look for in like a rom-com. If you're expecting any sort of progression with the romance, don't, because you're going to be disappointed. The whole joke is that nothing changes. Like the characters, there's never going to be any development with that relationship. But, they get to still be cool friends, and that's neat. I enjoyed that. It's just
The characters themselves are wonderful.
Yeah, it's fun. It's just don't go into it expecting a romantic development, because obviously you'll be disappointed. That's not what the show's aiming for. So, I don't know, have any other final thoughts before we just want to get into spoilers and just start explaining jokes?
No, I think we can start jumping into specifics now. I think we've covered our general opinions on it.
Well, I do think, obviously being like, it's Doga Kobo, so the visuals are super cutesy, and I think a number of the jokes are definitely like enhanced by the visuals here.
Yeah, for sure.
Trying to think of specific examples. Like, I just like a lot of the faces the characters will make, or there's like certain shots where they'll kind of like, I don't want to say like play with the depth of field, but like the characters, like, oh, if they're feeling like shy or insecure, they'll like duck into the background, like in one of the earlier episodes when Sakura is feeling all flustered and whatnot, she just kind of like shrinks into the background. Or they'll do their setup where it's like, oh, we're to expect this one thing is gonna happen, but oh no, it didn't. And there's just a lot of like the angry faces or just the looks of disappointment. It's all very good. It's a very good show for like reaction images.
Yeah. If visual comedy is your thing and you just want to see like what kind of insane visuals that people can put on screen and like have characters just do the most insane reaction faces imaginable, then this is your show. You found it. Congratulations. So shall we jump into specifics?
Yeah. What do you got? I'll let you go first.
All right. Well, I think that like the characters themselves are just like really interesting. They're not typical for anime. They're very like atypical, and that's very purposeful. The prince character, who you expect to be this like masculine playboy or whatever, is actually a girl, and like all the girls fought over her anyway, and she has kind of this she has kind of like I would say a fluid sense of gender, definitely, because she dresses like a prince half the time and a girl the other half of the time. So she doesn't really fit into any particular gender roles. So that was really interesting to see, because I haven't seen a character like that before in anime or in anything really. So yeah, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I did like how the show kind of would play with different sort of like character stereotypes, or how the humor would like interact with gender. Like you had the one character who he's like, oh, he's the pretty boy, but he's actually just like super shy, and he's just adorable, and like a lot of the jokes are like at the expense of his
he's so
sort of persona.
Yeah, and he's so feminine that Nozaki uses him as the inspiration for his heroine in his shoujo manga.
Yes. I like the way that like the gender stuff is sort of, or breaking away from kind of gender norms, how it's all kind of integrated into the humor, and it's all really cute. I think like it depends on the character, but like I can't remember his actual name. I just remember the nickname Mikorin, and it's just cute. But Mikorin. Like him and Nozaki-kun, I felt like they were like the two cutest characters in the show. Even though you obviously have like Sakura, who's like the main girl, and she's supposed to be super cute, but I don't know. It's just there are a lot of cute characters in the show, male, female, whatever. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun when it can be fun. I don't know.
I think in the way that like Mikorin is portrayed, I think he's made more than one straight man who's watched this show question their sexuality a little bit. So there's that.
I also did then like you had brought up Kashima earlier. I liked the one joke where I forget, maybe it was Sakura talking to the senpai whose name I don't remember. But
Hori.
Yes. Ah, that's right. Yes.
Hori senpai.
Yes, and she had asked Hori senpai if like, oh, like if you had a wedding, would you invite Kashima to your wedding or whatever? And he's like, no, she'd probably steal my wife away from me. And it's good.
And then there's Seo, who is the like a girl, but she's extremely masculine in the traits that she possesses, and I think that's intentional as well, because she's like extremely athletic, extremely like forceful, and extremely aggressive in like everything that she does. And she has a romance with like this timid boy who's like very like unsure of himself, and is unsure whether she's bullying him because she likes him or if she hates him, and he's very confused. And like that's the flip of what like those kind of romances normally are in this kind of story. So they're screwing with gender roles all over the place.
See, like if you go into this expecting like actual romance, and like you kind of would judge the show based on that'd be kind of disappointing, because the show does a lot with the misunderstanding stuff. Certain shows that try to hinge more on the romance and they kind of just like put off the development through misunderstandings can kind of be grating depending on what's going on. But I feel like Nozaki-kun, because you never, depending on the character, you can't really get the sense of like, is there a relationship here, or are they just so dense that things are just happening to occur in this way? Like the whole dynamic with Kashima and Hori senpai, like you could definitely read them as like a couple, but they are so like at each other's throats. Like they're always acting in ways that kind of like manage to screw the other over in one way or another, or kind of humiliate the other one. And so like I don't know, it's a fun time.
Kashima doesn't seem to understand at all how Hori Senpai feels about her, and so this leads to several incidents where she thinks she's doing something extremely nice for him, but
there's the whole episode where
he just gets angry.
She has the misunderstanding that he like wants to be like carried like a princess, and so she gets him like all these feminine clothing, and like she's composing these outfits, and he's like, on one hand she's harassing me, but on the other, like, this is a really well coordinated outfit. Why it's like, why is this happening?
Because he could tell that she put a lot of thought into what she was doing, that she wasn't just like doing it purely as a goof, but he still doesn't understand that that's what she's doing. Is she's trying to she thinks she's doing good. He thinks that she's doing something to harass him, because he doesn't understand that what she's trying to do is trying to help him do what he wants to do. And so it's just a whole ball of misunderstandings and like people talking past each other.
And that's basically how all the relationships are. There's some level of misunderstanding, and that's just the show. It's I mean, romantic comedy to the max, misunderstandings all around.
Yeah. One thing I do want to mention briefly is that the opening of this show is amazing.
Yes, the opening is a bop. It's great.
It's probably one of my favorite openings just to watch, just to listen to. It's just extremely unique, and it fits the show perfectly to a T. And in the opening, there's like there's a big part of the joke. There's a scene. There's multiple scenes where like tanukis are being destroyed, and before you get halfway through the show, you might be like, why do they hate tanukis so much? What's the deal here? and then you find out that it's because in the manga of Nozaki's friend, who is also a mangaka, she is being forced to put in tanukis by her editor, but she's so extremely like polite and well mannered and Japanese that she doesn't want to tell her editor to fuck off, more or less.
Yeah, it's a good setup and payoff in the opening. It's like certain openings will just like straight up spoil the plot of the show, but they do it in such a way that you don't notice until it happens. But this is like a cool, I mean, even like being a comedy where like there's only like so much quote unquote plot to dig into. That's a cool joke, like within the opening, but also in the context of the show. Because then after you meet that character and you go back,
as soon as you get to that episode,
this is what it's referencing.
And suddenly after that episode, that opening is very cathartic to watch, because you agree. You like, die tanukis, die.
I gotta say, Nozaki is he's a cool. I mean, I guess Sakura's the protagonist, but he's like the secondary protagonist. The way that he will read certain situations, like everything's gotta be in the context of like manga, and like that's definitely a mentality I can kind of get. Like, oh, if I'm doing something, it has to be kind of, I have to find a way to make it productive. Or like if I'm just kind of doing something that isn't being, related to something, it feels like, oh, I could be using this time for something else. But it's interesting to see that portrayed in this goofy way. Like Nozaki's always looking at scenarios through the lens of manga, but he also has this interesting way of like handling his shoujo manga. Because on one hand, there's the, again, breaking the gender norms, like, oh, it's this male character is creating a shoujo manga, which is targeted at girls, like a shoujo romance. And somehow he's able to just like portray a romance like, oh, he seems to get girls, but really he's just clueless. Like there's the scene with the bike, which is like a typical trope in like shoujo manga. That's like, oh, if you're like walking alongside the bike, or like characters riding double. But then he has this like weird makeshift bike, and Sakura's just like, at first she's all, I mean, as she tends to be, she's all like, oh, is this a romantic gesture? And then of course it's not.
Yeah, and then she ends up being horribly embarrassed by this lame two-seater bike that he got.
But then there's the one part later where she comes back and she's the one riding the bike, and she's like, hey.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And Nozaki is kind of extremely socially unaware for someone who like writes manga that like it's stated that these girls can really relate to and like understand. But when you actually meet him, and you're just like, this is the person that's been writing these like sensitive stories about like feminine issues. It's this person, really? There's like a huge disconnect between the writer and the characters that he makes and like who he is in real life, and to the point where he kind of has to like totally absorb himself into like what he's doing, and like whenever he tries to give actual advice, it kind of backfires because life isn't a shoujo manga.
Yes. And yeah, it is funny because he doesn't really get it. The only like his inspiration for stories is just to observe people, and in that way it's almost kind of like a plot device, because it's like, oh, okay, we needed to introduce a new character in this manga, let's observe a new character in this show. And so like when I guess like the premise is, oh, we need to progress something in this manga, well then he's like, okay, I need to figure something out with these two characters who are the like the research material for my manga. And so that's kind of like what directs the direction of the episode. Like there's another good joke in the show is like, oh, he needs to, I don't know, Mikorin is doing something, and so he like invites him over, and he's like, he says something about like, you know, needing help with girls or whatever, and the punchline is like, oh, it's a dating sim. Because of course it is, because Mikorin is a dork.
Yeah, yes.
And then like that dating sim like creates its own set of like punchlines. Like they end up following like the best friend character, who I think in the context of the dating sim is just kind of like a plot device, like, oh, here's all the exposition on these different girls and like what you should do. But then they get like attached to this best friend character, and they're like, oh, you gave up 3 years of your life for a protagonist like me. And then they like create their own like fan fiction based on like the life of this character, and it just turns back around to, you know, it's a weird string of shenanigans. But then there's also like whatever they do in the context of the game doesn't seem to work in like one of the scenarios. But then Nozaki talks to Sakura, and then everything's framed as like a dating sim, and she is totally won over by it, even though it doesn't work in the game. And that was a good punchline as well.
Yeah, it's also selling on, so like it's really trying to sell you hard on the fact that shoujo manga and dating sim games, they're not real. Like these characters wouldn't act like this in real life, and the reactions of real people are a lot more unpredictable and unexpected, and you can't really like program a response to a real life situation, because like everyone reacts differently, and there's no telling what would happen in those situations because there's no clear answer. And so it's kind of meta in a lot of ways, because it's also just trying to like it's trying to challenge you on a lot of your assumptions. I think that's what part of the intention was, in the way that it's breaking down gender norms, and like them realizing that the best friend character in the game is the protagonist's true love all along, because they were there for them the whole time. So yeah, it's definitely trying to challenge your assumptions in a progressive way, to like make you think about like the things that you have just assumed are true but might not be, based on like your experiences or like what you just thought was true but never thought to question.
Yeah, that's basically most of like the substance, I guess I'd have to say. There's not a whole lot to dig into with Nozaki-kun, other than just like, oh, does this joke work for you? Like beyond what we've kind of already said, unless you have anything else. Because at this point, I'm just kind of going through my screen caps. I'm like, oh, here's a funny joke. I could talk about that. Here's a funny joke.
We could talk about the ending.
Oh, right, like the ending.
Because there's a lot of people who've watched this show, because I know I've had this ending spoiled for me for years. I'm pretty sure I just heard someone say what the ending was, and I kind of internalized that. Mm-hmm. But there will be a large subset of the people who watch this who get to the ending and who are just like, why did it need to end this way? Why couldn't you just give me some tiny piece of satisfaction? Why did you have to troll me? But yes, there is the fireworks who definitely cock-blocked the situation, I guess you could say, by stopping Sakura from being able to properly confess. And yet, anime characters never think, oh, he didn't hear me the first time. Let's just try again. No, they just immediately give up because anime, I guess.
Well, yeah, because like you gotta muster the confidence to say the thing, and then when it fails, then you gotta do it again. But the anime characters don't have the determination to do it again, I guess. But then at the same time, like I don't know what else, based on the context of the entire show, what else you would have expected in this final scene. I don't see why people would be upset.
I wasn't angry. I can understand why other people would be, though. That's the thing. It's like, I was just like, of course. But I can see why other people would get upset because they wanted, like, they wanted a glimmer. They wanted a hope. They wanted something, but they didn't get anything, really. And it was just business as usual. The show is just trolling you and just making fun of you along the way.
That's true, because it does hang on that moment for a while, like it gets said, and then there's like a lot of like dramatic pausing and looking around at environments and stuff, and it makes you think like, did he hear it? But of course not, because I mean it's Nozaki-kun. What else would you expect from this show? So like for me, I never really expected anything of that moment. I just figured it's this show. Why would they give any sort of like cathartic satisfaction at the end? That's not how this works.
Yeah, I think that's a problem with a lot of short comedy shows, is that they can't give you a satisfying ending in just those 13 episodes, because it's either they rush the romance and it doesn't feel earned, or they skip out on the jokes and then it's not funny enough, or they don't even try and give you a satisfying ending and they just kind of drop you off in the middle of nowhere. A lot of people, as soon as you finish the show, will just immediately tell you to read the manga because the story does continue. I don't know what happens. It's possible that there is a satisfying ending at the end of the manga. I honestly have no idea. You'll have to find out for yourselves.
Yeah, I have not read the manga. I don't think I'm really interested enough to read the manga because like that medium change would take away a lot of what was interesting about the anime, and even then I wasn't super invested in the anime. Like I did enjoy it, but not in like the deep, oh yeah, I want to know what happens to this and watch it again. I need to know, yeah, like you said, what's happening next. So I mean, yeah, if people do like the manga, that's fine. Not particularly for me. The show wasn't all that special, I guess.
The show it's a good time if you're willing to just spend the time to watch it and just have some fun with it. It's probably not going to change your life. You might forget about it immediately, but you probably won't hate yourself for watching it.
No, yeah, because like we've said, it does some cool things that not many shows do. So it definitely does have its own specific elements that appeal. I don't know what I'm saying anymore.
I think I've pretty much said everything that I want to say. The show, it's good to decent.
Yeah, I would agree. And I guess that's a summation of Monthly Girls Nozaki-kun. Thanks for tuning in to another one of these reviews. Next time, we're going to be covering Ping Pong the Animation. That was the one that won the poll for the sports theme. I'm looking forward to that one because sports is more up my alley. And
I'm looking forward to that one because I love Yuasa and I haven't seen Ping Pong yet, and I need to.
Yes, I have not seen a Yuasa show ever, so Ping Pong would be as good of a place to start as any. So be sure to stay tuned for that. Any final closing thoughts from you, Rogel, before I sign off?
Oh gosh, I can't think of anything to say now.
Got any witty one-liners to end us out on?
No.
Okay,
my mind's gone completely blank. I wish I was that fast. God damn.
Well, we've done it. That is the end of the video. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you next month for the next show.